Okay. So everybody, we are going to start the webinar in just a few minutes, and so we'll be right back. We're just doing some prep work, and in 3 minutes we'll start as planned, on time. And for some reason, I lost you guys when I went to listen only. Let's see. Ah, there we go. You guys are coming back. All right. Woohoo! It's always awesome when we get everybody the way they're supposed to. Okay, I'm going to change the window so that all we see is your beautiful face, Lama Tashi, and we are ready to go. We are live and recording. Welcome, everybody, to our webinar this evening with Lama Tashi Dundrup of the Shangpa Kagyu lineage. Taking it. It's all you, Lama Tashi.
Aloha from Hawaii. It gives me very good pleasure, and I'm very honored to present this webinar today to you people and other people who have been in this tradition doing practice. And we're going to cover several topics. The main topic tonight is healing using the 5 element practices of Tibetan Buddhism. And to start with, we in our tradition take refuge with the teachers who are called lamas, and they're everywhere, men and women. And we take refuge with the teachings, which traditionally came from Shakyamuni Buddha. And some of these that's 2,600 years ago, and some of the topics of the medicinal remedies of the 5 elements came from China into Tibet. We'll talk about that. And then also, in this tradition, we take refuge with what we call the Sangha. That's the people who teach and practice. And all of this is incorporated into Buddhism worldwide of any tradition or any culture that uses Buddhism. So the Buddha, which is both the original Buddha Shakyamuni and a word for the nature of mind, pure consciousness, and all of the teachings that are disseminated through the various lineages and cultures. That's called the Dharma. And then we also take refuge in the what we call the symbols of practice. For instance, I have one over my left shoulder. This is a symbol of the female Buddha Prajnaparamita, which is part of the healing practice of the 5 elements, or we say the 5 taras. So all of that is refuge. When we take refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge in the Dharma, we take refuge in the Sangha. We take refuge in all the lamas and teachers. We take refuge in all their symbols used for disseminating the Dharma and gaining experience and realization through practice. And these refuges are the basis of all of the practices. They actually exist, but they are extraordinary in their nature as they are representing on all phases pure consciousness, which is used to flood the mind, which is so distracted and preoccupied with the relative existence or worldly activity. So I'm going to chant this all in Tibetan one time because the power of Sanskrit is a little more useful and effective. Dampa namla chaksu jiyo yedam shokorgi latso namla chaksu jiyo sanjay chong dende namla chaksu jiyo dampe chur namla chaksu jiyo Paupe gendu namla chaksu jiyo Paolo Kandro Chokyung Tsume Sho Yesheki Shindong Dempa Nama Chapsu Jiyo. So this prayer precedes all practice of both the Sutra and Tantric traditions and all the teachings on what we call voidness or the nature of mind. Then we also incorporate 6 practices of the Bodhisattva path, which is called Mahayana Buddhism and evolves into what we call Vajrayana or Tantric Buddhism. And those 6 methods are called bodhicitta or the pure nature. Sanjay Chodan Choki Chodnama Janju Bardu Dagni Chapsuchi Davi Jinjoji Pe Sonam Hidrola Penjur Sanjay Juparsho. The Bodhisattva path is extraordinary because it's very direct. And anybody can use the application of this path to what is called the 6 disciplines of the Bodhisattva, which are extended both on the relative and ultimate levels of consciousness. They are just simply the first practice, generosity. The second practice is morality, which includes ethics and good manners. We call that virtuous activity. The third is the practice of patience, both on the relative and ultimate levels. The fourth discipline is called perseverance or diligence. We do these practices and incorporate them into our worldly activities so that they become alive 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we practice yoga and meditation, which is to increase our attention span, but also awaken in us a state of awareness that is extraordinary in the human condition. And finally, we arrive at the 6th method, which is connecting through experience and realization the nature of mind, as in Sanskrit it's called sunyata, but in our language it's called voidness. And when one experiences that, we establish what is called the basis of altruistic compassion and joined with unconditional love. And with all of this, one moves very fast to connect with their pure nature and use that to benefit living beings. So that's what we call refuge. Then how to practice, well, that instruction is in each of the lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, connecting to a Lama, man or woman, who has been trained in the tradition on the 2 natures of mind, one is the relative nature, which is how we sense, think, and emotionally react to things, and our propensity or tendencies because of those activities. And then on the ultimate level of consciousness, which is our pure nature, which is all pervasive in a word, the universe. And in our tradition, nothing is supernatural. We don't go into the supreme or supernatural situation. It doesn't work for us. The purpose of all of the practice of Tibetan Buddhism is not religion, it is healing. So if you establish this idea, and no matter what modality you practice for healing purposes, then you understand all of these practices that we teach and disseminate in Tibetan Buddhism. When it comes to the five elements, this also is the basis of what we call our phenomenal world. We treat it as a maternal subject, in other words, using the female aspect that the universe, which is incorporated in galaxies, solar systems, and planet, is all female energy, and these five elements make up all of that, which we call our phenomenal world. Also, our body. So when the body is created in the mother's womb, these five elements are extended in the process. So on that level, everything is natural. And natural simply means like nature. And since the life force of the universe is presented in that way, the life force in our body is sustained in connection with that. There is no separation, really, in those outer and inner aspects. When we use the five elements, we say earth, water, fire, air, and space. Well, all the tribes of the planet have been surviving for many thousands of years, connecting to these elements in various ways, primarily through the food chain and water, and then to the fire element and what we call air or breath, and then finally the space element, which is the connecting link of these, brings them all into what we call an inseparable state. And that idea of separation is the basis of pure consciousness. There is no such thing as separation. Even though your senses tell you differently, your conditioned thinking tells you that, and then also your emotional reaction enforces that. But all of that is simply disinformation. It's actually causes disturbance on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. When we say, where did this come from? Well, simply for the Tibetan tradition, it actually evolved from China in the Taoist tradition and other traditions which came together in Eastern Tibet and then were incorporated in the, what we call the Bon Po tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. The Bon is shamanistic. So my teacher, 1977, I met with the Lama Rinpoche. I asked him what was his background. And he says, well, very simply, my mother and father were shamans of the Bon tradition. And then later, I met with lamas of the Indian tradition of Mahayana Buddhism, and I started to adopt these practices of Tibetan Buddhism, but I incorporated the shamanistic practices of energy applications into the practices. And that's the way it was taught to me when I was involved with what is called a 40-month retreat in Tibetan Buddhism. And so these were part of the practices of that 40-month retreat. When we say 40-month retreat, that's kind of astounding in Western culture because most people think of a retreat of 1 or 2 days or 10 days or a month. But there's so much information for healing in this tradition that each of the practices are designed to be practiced in retreat, 28 days for each type of practice. That's 4 weeks or 1 moon cycle. And so month to month, the practice changes, very much like how college or universities present subject by subject. But the way that the practices are used after the retreat is what the retreat is all about. For instance, in my situation, I returned to Hawaii from the 40-month retreat, which was accessed in Oregon, and immediately started to set up a Dharma center, build a Dharma center that was being established on Maui, which is where I was from. And then later from that, I extended the teachings to the community college there and also to the community college here on Kauai, so that these healing practices could be incorporated in their philosophy and comparative religion classes. The aspect of the 5 elements is universal, but how are they used is in this tradition very extraordinary, because connecting using the 5 elements only for healing the body and increasing the energy patterning of the body, which is very useful, so that you accomplish what you need to do, job, family, whatever. But also it's set up to connect you to your inherent nature of pure consciousness, which relatively speaking is not in the mind. So it's another dimension of being. And that dimension, nothing in this dimension actually can move into that dimension of being, except through focus and what we call a state of accomplishing lax awareness. But everything in that dimension can flood this dimension, and it is doing that. For instance, the picture you see behind me, that actually is emanating from the pure consciousness state. That's where the word Buddha comes in. Buddha simply means Bu means light, Da means sound. So we're incorporating light and sound using symbols. This female symbol behind me is actually all the 5 elements in one, as the 5 taras of the 5 elements in Tibetan Buddhism. And the Prajnaparamita incorporates all of the sutra tradition, tantric tradition, and all the teachings on pure awareness or voidness. They connect those two. So we're using sound and light for healing, both actually existing, such as in nature, and ultimately existing in your consciousness. Practice is simply to bring those two together in an extraordinary method. And when we do that, you need to have some qualifications. Of course, you need to be inclined to be this type of human, which is interested in the well-being of others and, of course, oneself, because there's no separation, but also in benefiting the environment and all the beings in the environment, all the animals, all the spirits, and all the humans. So this is extraordinary application. Then, with that in mind, you learn to well, of course, breathe consciously is very important. This permeates all the yogas, and of course, things like Tai Chi, which is really a system of healing, which is martial arts in its extreme form. But more importantly, you're connecting to 5 states of intrinsic awareness that reside in your consciousness, and all beings have this, but only humans can connect to it. So the particular type of human must first of all be inclined, second of all, have the ability, that means be physically and mentally in pretty good condition. The third is to have leisure time. Well, in my case, I had to develop that because I was a very kind of workaholic type of being. And then support. Now, the support we actually started with tonight in this webcam. But the support means not just outer support, but also the inner support of spiritual good karma that that assists you in the process of becoming healthy, of becoming mature is the best word. That's what my mother always told me. She said, I not only want you to grow up and survive and be healthy, I want you to mature, become mature as a human being. And so that maturity is part of our evolutionary process. Today we have so many extremely intelligent people on the planet. Not all of them are karmically correct, but at least we've attained that level of maturity on the relative level. But more important than that, we need to attain maturity on the spiritual level. Then incorporate the two, because we're impermanent. This temporary situation of being in the body is simply that the body is a husk holding consciousness. Sure, the body quits, but the consciousness does not. So we move into a state without the body. How is that going to be? And belief and correct karmic activities, being positive, helpful, kind, and considerate, is part of that. What determines how your next existence is going to be without a human body. So we're not only healing on the level of the present situation, but we're also healing our future. And since our future doesn't have an end in sight, we have to accept that this timeless state is part of our pure consciousness, but also we should accept that we're immortal. And that's very helpful to accept that idea. Then when you incorporate the 5 elements, we use symbols. We use the same kind of symbols that other traditions have used, such as geometric symbols, or the actual entities of the 5 elements, which are the earth, Mother Earth, all of the forms of radiation and fire, including our sun, all of the air element, all of the water element on the land and in the ocean, and actually the water within our body, and all of the space. The space is the entity that allows these elements to exist in an inseparable state, but also allows you to access pure consciousness. Excuse me. Abby. Excuse me, I was thinking we were interrupted. This aspect of the 5 elements I'm going to show you tonight for healing purposes is, where do you start? Well, you start with from where you are. Because first of all, just to be in this program, you have the extraordinary good karma, especially on the spiritual level. So with that, you're starting from that extraordinary state. You should congratulate yourself that you have a very extraordinary, precious situation. And based on that, then you start to think about the impermanence of your physical situation, your body. And then you think of the impermanence of everything. Every living being, everything in the universe arises, presents itself, and disappears. Well, your mind works the same way. Everything comes out of this aspect of space, presents itself as thoughts, which we emotionally disturb by reacting to them with an unstable habit of emotionality. And then this all disappears. For instance, if you try to hold a thought, you want to say, well, where did it come from? And what is it? Well, it's here. You know, you look directly at this like you would watch a bird flying in the sky. You just watch the motion. And then it disappears. Well, that basis is energy. So the energy itself is all pervasive. And that energy that's all pervasive is conscious. So this universe is a conscious being, but not supernatural. It's in no way superior. It's just life enhancing and life enforcing. And it doesn't do this on the level of emotionality. It just beginningless, endless, timeless, appearing phenomena. But it has power. All energy has power. And in fact, energy only transforms into more energy. It is the one aspect of creation that does not disappear. It just changes its format or form. So when it comes to the five elements, for instance, if you need more earth, well, then mostly that's coming through the food supply. If you need more air, of course, that's coming through the breath or the breathing process. But the air itself carries energy, which is called qi in Chinese, prana in Sanskrit, or in our language, useful energy. Then the radiation aspect is the life support of everything in the ocean and on the land, plant life, animal life, and so forth. So it has more than one application. And finally, the space, this is where everything comes from and goes back into in a planetary situation. Everything arises from the sky, forms to create life, a life support situation we call Mother Earth and her atmosphere, and then it disappears. It's time sequential, and it's all three-dimensional also, which is another important aspect in the relative situation, and very useful when you start to merge your relative situation with pure consciousness, because if you're using your imagination, which we do a lot in these practices, and the ability to focus, it's in 3D. To digress for a minute, we actually have a pair of glasses that you can put on, connect to your computer, create a program on your computer, and then the glasses will project that in front of you. And in such a way that without a glove or anything special, or you could change the format of what you are projecting or seeing through these glasses simply by the use of your hands. And nobody else can see this, but you're seeing it. and working with it. And it's on the relative level, where the word relative comes from, is real. But it is also illusory. So then the next step, of course, is to take that program and those glasses and what you did or created there and apply it, for instance, to make a product. We do very much the same thing in these practices where we use the consciousness or the imaginary aspect of our consciousness, the same thing that creates thoughts. Through focus, we use that thought process, that mental capability in what is happening is with imagination. And we are now moving from the age of communication, which I like to think started with the Buddha 2,600 years ago, and has evolved down to our present state. For instance, this program being presented to you this way, the social situation on the planet is moving into the age of imagination. So much so that you can incorporate not only into a solid object, but into a hologram qualities and characteristics, and some of these even very human-like. And this is not just science fiction. This is actually taking place. So we in our tradition very much value this ability to use the imagination. And since we are bringing in with the senses and then mentally digesting and then projecting back out to others in our environment, we do this in practice. So I'm going to, at this point, present a practice that will give you an example of how your imagination can heal simply by focusing on a symbol of an element. But not only cause healing within your physical body or that of another's, if this is applied through healing modalities, but also how it can take you into beyond the intellectual confines, beyond the limits of conditioned existence, beyond the, we use the word into the ultimate, but I like into another dimension. I like the fourth dimension. So we're going to do that now. In front of me, I have symbols that evolved from other traditions into Tibetan Buddhism, which we've incorporated in the West through geometry. The first symbol we use in healing, the earth element, is because we exist in a body, and it has a lot of earth element in it. So we use a cube, a yellow cube, to symbolize that. We label that earth. Then part of the process of the body is to be water, which is actually the major part of the human form. So we use a round blue sphere to to imagine this water. Then radiation or fire, which actually improves gravity itself, not just the solar energy or an actual fire, is a four-sided pyramid with a base. And this is the pyramid symbol for that. Then we have the air element, which we use a half sphere of green light, or green, color green. And then the space element is white. And this is actually pure consciousness. This is the basis of pure consciousness. Very much like the space of our phenomenal world and the space between everything in atomic form, which is almost all objects. And these two cannot be separated. Actually, water and space mirror each other. So these two are constantly in an undifferentiated state. But all five elements can't exist without, one element can't exist without the other four. So you kind of keep that idea. But tonight we're going to use, it doesn't matter which one of the five elements you use, but when you use it, you're actually bringing more of that kind of energy into your physical body through the imagination using these symbols. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to use the water element, which is the most important for a planetary situation, because that's where the air comes from. But in any case, it'll be a blue sphere, and it's made of light. You're going to imagine this. Now, the process of meditation has to, in our tradition, start formally. So what we do is we bring the body to rest by sitting, either in a chair or cushion. Then we tilt the head slightly forward. Now, when you're sitting, you want your back straight, your shoulders in alignment, and maybe a little bit back. Then you bring your head slightly forward to line up the energy patterning of this part of your body with the energy patterning of the torso. We meditate with the eyes open because we're incorporating the light in very much the way the two eyes see it right in front of our eyes. So we keep our eyes open and soften the gaze to that space about arm's length in front. And we start with the mouth closed, breathing through the nose. This adds more positive energy to the process of breathing by warming the air as it comes in, which is part of the fire energy. And then hands in a comfortable position. I like palms down on the knees, or it can be right on top of left in the lap, but just comfortable. Now, these five positions are called mudras in Sanskrit. And they lend the process of focusing and the development of awareness to enter into your stream of being. And you can feel this without doing anything. You can feel how comfortable you are in your form, in your body. Now you bring your focus to the present. And there's many ways of doing this, but we develop through the breathing process, very much like the training in martial arts or other traditions, so that you simply watch yourself breathing, the inhale and the exhale. And through this focus, you start to exclude everything else. It's called prana yoga or conscious breathing. The importance of this is to bring yourself into a state of peace. We say calm abiding. And in this state, you can access awareness. Now, some people get stuck just at this level of calm abiding and think that's the ultimate. But we're going to use this state to move into pure consciousness. And that's called the development of clarity or insight awareness. In any case, focusing on the breath disconnects you from worldly involvement. Very important. So this very basic practice is very powerful and immediately starts the healing process. Now we're going to add a third component to this two-part process. Inhale, that's the first step. Second step, make a mental pause, about a second, then exhale. This is called three-part breathing. This middle breath you're acknowledging with the pause is called the absorption breath. At this point, the energy of the air element, or all the elements actually, are extracted for use throughout your body. Inhale, pause, exhale. We're going to start with the process of energy absorption of the air element, increasing the energy, but also the discipline of focusing. Color the air coming in with your imagination as white, or like white light you're inhaling. The middle breath, the absorption breath, you visualize red light permeating your form like in a flash. And the exhale is the blue light, and you think of it pervading space. Inhale air is white light, absorption breath, red light, exhale the air is blue light. At this stage, you're focused but more relaxed and actually have increased the healing energy for your body. Your mental process being pointedly focusing in this way causes you to become more aware. The next step is to use this light energy to access the element. So in this case, you take the incoming white light, combine it with the red light, and at that moment, take your focus off the breath and establish all the light energy as a point in the center of your chest. A very tiny, microscopic, even atom-sized particle of pure light. In establishing it in the middle of your chest, it creates an energy center, which in Sanskrit is called a chakra. And this tiny point of light is to access primordially the universe. Then, focusing on that point of light in the center of your heart chakra, you use your imagination to expand it to a tiny sphere of clear light, three-dimensional. And in this way, you're moving into the dimension of this phenomenal world. Then you increase the size of that tiny sphere of clear light, and as it increases, it becomes the size of the sphere I showed you in blue light. Once that is established in your heart chakra, you label it, which is what we love to do with everything. We label it water, the water element. Holding our focus there, we then move that sphere of blue water out the front of your body and up before your eyes about 2 feet out. Now you're using your third eye of your imagination to focus and create this in front of your eyes. If you can't visualize it, just think it's there. The ability to visualize in some has to be developed. Others, it's so powerful they can actually see with their two outer eyes the object. But in any case, focusing on that blue sphere, labeled water, made of light, increase it in size so that you can see your body inside it, floating inside this blue sphere of light. Then, once that's established, again enlarge the sphere so that it incorporates or encloses the town you live in, or like here in Hawaii, we put the island of Kauai inside. Now you're expanding your reference with your imagination. The next step is to expand it outward to incorporate Mother Earth and including her atmosphere inside this blue sphere of light. And actually should be labeled water instead of Earth as a planet. The next step in this process, in this meditation, is to expand that blue sphere to enclose our whole solar system. Billions of miles in diameter with the sun in the middle, all the planets, everything inside. Then expand outward to the proportions of our spiral galaxy, which is measured in light years. But all of that inside this symbol. And the final step at this part of the meditation is to expand it to the proportions of boundless space. Since this is beyond your mental constructs, just relax as this symbol merges with the phenomenal world or boundless space. Just relax. No meditation, just you're in boundless space. Stay present. At this point, you're allowing the pure consciousness of the reality of the phenomenal world and your own situation to merge. And this experience floods the restricted mind or the relative situation. Then after a minute or two of this level of the practice, return with your focus to the symbol water enclosing the spiral galaxy. Condense it in size to just enclosing our solar system. Then smaller to just enclose Mother Earth, Mother Water. Then again, just to enclose the size area of your town or island. Then smaller and smaller, tinier and tinier until you just see yourself sitting inside, just as you are. From that position, bring it to in front of your eyes, 2 feet out, divisional size, as a symbol. And then to chest level and into your heart chakra. Shrink it in size till it changes from the blue sphere back to a small, clear or crystal sphere of light. Keep the process going till it's back to a tiny, tiny particle. And as it disappears into the luminosity of space, boundless space, relax. Move from this dimension into that dimension. But relax. Watch. When the chatter of the mind gets too loud, again, take your awareness to the space in front of your eyes and expand it into your room or the place where you are. And that ends the application of the 5 elements, using the water element in particular, to heal the body and access pure consciousness as inseparable from the primordial nature of the universe itself. Moving from conditioned or limited or egocentric habit to a more universal or boundless spatial state, which allows awareness to penetrate into all your aspects of being, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And as my teacher, Lama Rinchen, says, that's it. Now, at this point in the presentation tonight, some may have questions. Should we
Okay,
allow that?
so give us a few minutes, everyone, where Lama Tashi has opened it up for questions. So if you have any questions, if you can type them into the chat box, and myself and Jacques will read them to Lama Tashi. So we'll give you a few minutes to see if you have any questions regarding anything that Lama Tashi taught or anything that you would like to hear him talk about from this point forward.
Okay, while we're waiting for those questions, I can introduce a basis of our tradition, which is very useful for any type of spiritual practice, not just Tibetan Buddhism. I mentioned before that we're in an extraordinary situation, and we should acknowledge that for ourselves, that we've reached the top of the food chain, is a nice way to put it. And we have everything we need. We have a good body, mentally sound, more or less emotionally stable, usually less, and spiritually adept. Spiritually doesn't mean religion. Spiritually means connected on these levels. And so through time we are developing or moving towards maturity. But that's just for you. For others, we use the thought of impermanence, that everybody's impermanent. Not everybody has this extraordinary situation. And because of that, there's extreme levels of pain and suffering at all levels of existence, which means pervading the animal world, the human world, and the spiritual world. The animal and human world only exist on a planet. The spirit world encompasses the boundless space. Neither animals nor spirits can be counted. They're uncountable in numbers. Humans, very limited number of humans in planetary situations throughout our universe. The human condition is the best because it's the one that can access the premortal state through consciousness development of awareness, through focus. So these two thoughts are very important. The idea of we're in an extraordinary situation, we should use it not only for ourselves, but to benefit others in our environment. The second is because everything is changing so fast or impermanent, we should do this now, not wait till the future, not wait till we're dying or leaving the body process.
Lama Tashi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, John.
Hi. We've got a couple of questions. So
Okay.
the first question is, does the meditation, the special Shine elemental meditation you just taught, look similar with the other elements? In other words, is it done the same way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Understand that one element is all five, but you're bringing the predominant influence of that element for healing purposes, not only for you personally, but to incorporate into whatever modality to do. So if you strengthen it yourself, then it spontaneously works in like massage, acupuncture, all these other various modalities. What's that answer the question?
Yes. Okay. Yes, the person just said, okay, understood, thank you. So we have a second.
Yes, 5 elements done the same way.
Yep. And so the second question is, Could you please repeat the elemental colors and symbols? Could you hold them up again, please?
Yeah. I'm going to present them in the way that they dissolve one into the other when you start to leave your body in the dying process.
Okay.
The first element that you lose connection with, and you can tell that you're doing this because you can't eat, can't take food, is the yellow cube. And this is the earth element. So it's actually used in meditation because you're imagining it in light form. That's the first symbol. The second symbol that we use is the water element, which I just presented as a blue sphere. The third element is radiation or fire, which, like the sun's energy, is the pyramid, five-sided, four sides and a base. Then the fourth element that starts to disappear is air. The air element is a green half sphere of light, like a bowl with a lid. And finally, the fifth geometric form is space, which is a white sphere of light. These represent independently what we need as to support our life force, and the life force is what supports our vitality. So these work to connect with the life force of the universe through these five elements. There's no other way, actually. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, Lama Tashi, what do you mean by there's no other way? There's no other way but to connect with the elements through meditation, or?
No, the five elements that we use, there isn't anything other than that for healing.
Ah, yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, but you can't do it with a supernatural being, for instance. There's no such thing as a supernatural being to begin with. Everything in this universe is totally natural, but on the level of the universe itself, it's all incorporated into the five elements. They're the aspect of everything, your body and everything. They appear in different formats. Some even appear as to be separate, but they never can be separate. So internalizing these through whatever process, eating properly, whatever, is the way we bring them in. Breathing, getting vitamin D from the sun, and so forth. All the forms of healing of the planet, tribally, have been accomplished this way. Hawaiian, American Indian, Chinese, Tibetan. This is how we survived up to the industrial age. We're losing connection with these five elements in the industrial age because of the way these products are produced and the cultures being distracted in various ways. So those two things are really what we want to bring back. We want to bring back the mindfulness about who and what we are, what we think, and the connection to nature. And we also want to become more alert. Well, alert is in the same aspect as awareness. Awareness means to be alert. For instance, texting and walking in front of a train is a lack of alertness. Awareness. So these two, most people don't have a clue. So these are not only developed to give one more energy and better health, but also to wake you up, help you to become more mindful of your own process, your own thoughts and emotionality, the way you perceive things and so forth. And at the same time, connect you primordially to the infinite possibilities outside of this mentally limited situation we've created. That answer that?
Yes, thank you, Lama Tashi. Wonderful.
Any more questions?
I don't believe there are any more questions at this time. Jacques, are there more questions?
There is one question. It's a little off topic. We could ask it at the end, or do you want me to ask it now?
You can ask it now. If it's not appropriate,
Okay.
we'll answer it.
It says, I was recently at the Dance Mandala Temple in Portland and was taught a sacred dance of the Vajrayogini. It was explained that the stomping dance steps symbolize the power of divine feminine entities to crush evil forces, ego, etc. Do you have any thoughts on the power of dance for these purposes?
Well, if you've ever seen a Tai Chi master, one of the things that they do is stamp their feet. And what they are doing is actually connecting very powerfully to the gravitational force of the planet. And through their development, through this kind of program that the Tai Chi presents, you can spread that energy through your body. And if there's people or beings around you, they're going to experience this tremendous increase in that elemental energy, just to show the power of the elements. And each of the elements, for instance, in Vajrayogini, are connecting to 5 states of very useful awareness that you can experience and then very profoundly realize. And it brings on a state of joy or enjoyment of being alive in the moment and spreading that to others and back to your environment as your life support system. So that's what you're doing. When it comes to negative forces such as spirits and so forth, it helps to befriend them more than overpower them. You're operating on their level, and you're doing it in such a way that if your basis is concerned about their well-being, we call that compassion, and you're starting to level the playing field so that the spiritual forces don't give you problems. That's the power of these spiritual practices that we do. And all of them come from this state of consciousness called pure consciousness, shown by the symbol behind me of Prajnaparamita, which is the ultimate nature in the relative situation. And yes, that's good medicine, what you've experienced there in Portland. Highest Anatura Tantric Yoga. And you can use Vajrayogini for all kinds of practices. One of them that we use to connect to the heat element. And that is the highest Tantric Yoga, but you have to work up to that level through the Tara tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. And do it in such a way that you understand the symbol is your Lama. That means your innermost perfect state of consciousness, which is showing itself outside. Everything is coming from inside to outside. We have this whole universe backwards. We're projecting our projection, then no distortion. Then everything's healthy, fun, exciting. Some say magical. Not magical, but that's a pretty close word. So that answers that question.
Thank you, Lama Tashi. There's one more.
Okay.
Okay. This came just shortly. I didn't see it earlier. It came after you reviewed the elements and the question and did the meditation. And the question is, where does the sexual energy come in?
Well, if you don't have sexual energy, you don't have humans. And in our modern age, sexual energy has changed from just creating more humans to being a process of healing, not just on the physical level, in relationships. And the sexuality of this of healing can be accomplished sexually by oneself. It's called solo. We use the word tantra in modern days, but solo tantra. The Taoists have been doing this for thousands of years. In the Hindu tradition, there are various practices. In the Sufi tradition, and so forth. So this is not, we want to think, oh, we're talking New Agey. This isn't. This is a very powerful energy system where you incorporate the ability to focus and use that energy for healing purposes, not only of the body, but your consciousness. You start to connect with the natural setting, and actually performing sexual activity in a natural setting is recommended. So therefore, it's what we do. We are, and not everybody does, because we have all these various variations on the theme of sexuality. There are people who have no interest in sexuality whatsoever, and those kind of people make very good monks and nuns in other traditions and our tradition. But
where does the sexual energy come in?
the sexual energy comes in our practices the moment you penetrate your pure state of consciousness. The moment that you apply this to your natural setting, the world around beings in it, that's sexy. That's what we call Tantra, merging the relative and the ultimate, merging with the universe itself as the mother. And all of the mother's support is unconditional love and compassion that you become mature as a being, whether you're in a body or not. And that kind of maturity, we use the word Bodhisattva or Buddha. And that's not exclusive. That's not just for our format of practices and methods. That's universal. You need to have something, because it can take you over. It's so powerful. It can inflate your egocentric situation. More I, me, mine. Bigger, bigger, bigger. Then many karmic disturbances arise. So you have to approach this subject of sexuality intelligently, cautiously, and with guidance. And so, very useful, not just for profile, on many levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Good question.
So this is the same person again. His name is Fernando, and he has the 5-element sexual instruction, and he is asking the question, I meant using the sexual energy when practicing the 5 elements. I'm not sure exactly what his question is.
What's the question?
The question is, he says, when does the sexual energy come in? And you started talking, and then he wrote, I meant using the sexual energy when practicing the 5 elements.
So it sounds like. Sorry, go on, Jacques.
I think this might not be the right question for this venue.
Yes, yeah. It sounds like it's a more, because Fernando, it sounds like actually has the 5-element sexual teachings, and so he has a question about that. So perhaps we can refer him to speak with you about that later, Lama Tashi.
Yes, I think that's what we should
Well,
do.
you answer that. As guys in this, yeah, either that or you two handle that.
Okay, thank you, Lama Tashi.
Because you're proficient in the ability to guide people.
Thank you, Lama Tashi. Will do.
When presenting this, we're in the graphic age of communication, so this is presented two-dimensionally, but actually it's a three-dimensional aspect of the five elements. What we're saying here is that these five symbols, the red fire, the yellow earth, the white space, and the green air, and the blue water, is software. And this code entered into your hard drive, your mind, starts the process of healing for the body, speech, and mind on 4 levels right away. It's holistic. On the physical level, which we call the outer, the mental level, which we call the inner, the emotional level, which we call the secret, and on the spiritual level, which we call the sublime. Because the spiritual level is actually bringing in the pure nature of consciousness itself, which is universal, into the limited consciousness of your state of being. You actually are very, in your approach to life, because of the conditioning that we're experiencing, very constricted or limited. And not only that, we're not sensing things correctly. We're not mentally connecting to things correctly. And because of the habit of emotionality itself, we're making matters worse on all levels of social activity. And I mean all levels, from the family level right to the highest corporate level. Religions, very disturbing this. Now, when we show this chart, we label this because we're also knowledge feeders. We're intelligent. We want to satisfy the seeking of information. But that shouldn't be the final step. You can only take knowledge so far. When you move into pure consciousness, knowledge doesn't work. It gives you the experience, but not the ultimate realization of what's going on and how to apply it. It doesn't move you into timeless states of infinite potential. That's where you want to be. And it's not supernatural. Because of this color code and applying it this way, it's pretty much available to a lot of the beings, human beings, especially in more sophisticated society. Then, through the color code, we access the premortal states in 5 ways. And this makes the application of these 5 states of awareness useful in our daily lifestyle, daily life situation. But we have to do it kind of formally to start with. And that's where the teachers come in. They give you these practices and guidance and instructions how to do this formally, but the real purpose is informally. Get it down. It's like playing music, so you don't need to read the music. You hear it all the time. Then integrate that into whatever you do. Sleeping, dreaming, wake stage, dying, leaving the body, incorporating into the next scenario we call the bardo, which is a becoming again. But when you access these 4, is in its identity, water can't exist unless it's in a state of union. The atoms won't bind properly. But water is in that state can be ice, steam, or water. So there's lots of parameters there, lots of unlimited application. The air element itself moves you into the state of action because air moves. And that activity is the path of the Bodhisattva for us, where we take those 6 disciplines and work them, both on the relative and ultimate level with the guidance of a Bodhisattva, a teacher, somebody else that's already doing it. somebody that has not only wisdom but knowledge, how to give you how to apply it, how to use it. Then you go to the third aspect of awareness, was how to think without a big emotional drama from every thought. Learn to think clear of emotionality. For instance, when you applied yourself to your breath tonight, you weren't really emotionally involving yourself, you were just doing it. Okay? But you had to focus when we used the water element. You didn't have any attachment, aversion, or thought you were superior or inferior, none of that drama stuff. The next state is the yellow earth element, connects you to a state of equality. Everybody on this planet is terminal, and that way we're equal. Everybody's breathing the same air, drinking the same water, using the same food system. It's global. Well, this state of equanimity is emotional stability. And nobody higher and lower. This supernatural idea is just an idea. It's not workable. It might give you a little state of peace or happiness, but it cannot give you lasting. It doesn't work like that. This universe doesn't work that way. The mind doesn't work that way. And finally, you get to the state of the red element, the fire element, keeps you very discerning. What is workable, what is not? What is positive, what is not? What is healing, what is not? What is good for the planet, what is not? Discerning awareness. What is your pure consciousness and what is your mind? You should know this. They're not two separate things, but you're indicating them as two separate things. One can't exist without the other. But since we're in a human form, we have this mind trap. Emotional habits, it's like a defect. And it shouldn't be a defect. Emotions are very powerful and useful, but you need to discern their usefulness. So these 5 elements, in this way, by our teachers, and now I've had many teachers since 1977 to now, all use this method. Where does it take us? How do we go directly there? Well, we all can't. We're all, spiritually moving forward, progressing to maturity, but at different karmic speeds is about. But some of us, because of many past lives of karmic practice in using these methods, in the modern day has evolved to what is called highest Anuttara Tantric Yoga. It is the Mahayana Buddhism of the 6 disciplines that we took for refuge. But it's a step beyond that, because now you're going to access your pure consciousness and bring them with all of that power of the body, speech, and mind into this dimension of being intentionally. And your purpose for doing that is to disseminate that experience impartially applies its healing energy of light. So that is where we come up with the Prajnaparamita as an ultimate symbol, expressing itself in a more laser-like way as a teaching symbol for humans that have the ability to use their imagination to create themselves in bodies of light. And then use vibratory sound energy to hook with the elements and states of awareness, but in such a way that the I disappears. I use the word altruistic. So that it becomes we are doing it. And then, like a mother for her only child, it's impartially applied. The mother is using unconditional love. That is that's the best way of being. That works. Here we are. The only way to get into this world is through a mother. My mother never let me forget that she was my creator. So in that relationship, we use the symbol of the Tara in various colors on the same color code as the five elements. So if you have the green Tara, that's air. If you have the red Tara, that's the fire. If you have the white Tara, that's the space. Blue Tara is the water. Gold Tara, earth. But more importantly, that aspect of being, because of the 6 disciplines of the practice, are a high healing modality. And all the lamas of Tibetan Buddhism do this. Okay, there's one country left on the planet where it's actually incorporated to all aspects of life, and that's Bhutan. But before the industrial age started to really take hold, all of the Himalayan, both sides, all the way up into Mongolia, eastern Tibet, all of that into Afghanistan, Kashmir, Ladakh, all those countries were using this survival mode method. And it's embedded in their cultures even today. The difference between the traditions of using this type of practice of what we call Dhyana Buddha practice, which means deity yoga, D means light, is that in our tradition it's applied altruistically. In other traditions, they identify with it as who they are, and then they may progress into the celestial spirit world. And that's okay, but that's temporary. No state of spiritual rebirth, no matter how bad or good it is. The universe just doesn't work that way. Energy doesn't work that way. Knowing that, we apply the altruistic motivation that what one is doing in these practices, everybody is in the movie. It's called mandala creation. So when you're using any form of activity, sexual included, and we do that, for instance, you have Jacques and Davy's teachings on this subject, there you are motivated this way. And that's the difference between Buddhist and other traditions that practice. But if you become this deity, if you have that ability, only I would say a few thousand human beings have this ability, then you are moving into the state of pure consciousness. It is dragging you along. It's like a match in a dry forest. Once you start to bring this energy in this way, it floods the mind. And because the mind is flooded, your body is flooded. Psychic channels are generated because of these practices, because of these sounds. And that's why we call it highest Anuttara Tantric Yoga. And so I could give you a little example of that if you would.
We are almost out of time. Can you do the example in 5-10 minutes?
Well, very quickly, it's applied in the same way. If you don't have a text and the teacher hasn't given you the basic instruction, that you can start with a point of light in your heart chakra, because the heart is the energy of all-pervasive mind. Unconditional love, altruistic compassion, emotional stability, all of that starts from the heart. It's to compensate for the intellectual ability we associate with the head chakra, the gathering of knowledge and so forth. So when you start with a point of light and create that tiny sphere, you create the sound that starts the deity process. And it's created in light form, three-dimensional, in your heart chakra in a sphere of 5-colored light. And that symbolism is to bring the 5 elements and these 5 states of awareness that I just described as one thing, all blended together. And then support. All the lamas, all the symbols, for instance, I have a symbol behind me of this kind of practice. Then, once you've connected all these symbols, there's an exchange of energy or light comes back into your heart chakra. You manifest as a light form. Your physical aspect transformed. And then your imagination is transformed. It's going along with this software. Then finally, once you've got all that in place, this three-dimensional being that was out there, now you're it. You've absorbed it. You visualize your mother as the same. And then everybody you have karma with, dad, friends, relatives, associates, pets, animals, domestic animals, whatever. Then all the animal world, then all the spirit world, and all of the human condition. Well, we got 7 billion humans, so that's a lot of taras you'll be projecting out there around you. That becomes your support group. When you do that, the mantra, the vibratory energy, is applied through the speech. So that what you're incorporating as your form of light and your mind, this mandala, filling the mind, comes out your mouth as the sound of the deity's expression that others can hear. See, like you're incorporated with spirits. Your body's full of spirits and animals, and there's all around you sentient being. So you're saying the mantra that's a result of the mandala you created in your mind. Now, this is a drama program, but it's very, very effective for those that can do it. And the guidance of the Lama is absolutely, teacher is absolutely necessary. Anyway, it goes like this. Sounds like this. For Tara. Coming from the primordial nature, but now expressed as you as the Tara. 5 elements, 5 states of awareness, all of that. Om Tara tu re so ha. 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 Now, that vibratory sound expressed through your speech helps you to clean up negative aspects of speech, like talking angry or whatever, lying or talking incessantly or whatever, slandering. It moved more to more positive, powerful, beneficial, and healing. This is healing speech. And the deity is always human, male or female. In this case, we're using Tara to connect to the 5 elements. We use a male deity to connect to the 5 states of awareness. And in some practices, we bring the two together so that you understand intuitiveness. Knowing without knowledge. Intuitive. And this state of intuitive awareness is very, very useful in this modern age. And applied to healing modalities, no matter what they are, and sexuality, very powerful. I think are the best. But again, I must caution you, you need to be, because of the egocentric power, you need to have outside support, help. And in our form of tantric practice, you need to receive what is called the empowerment of, not just how to do it. Because there's a lineage of this. This is not something new in New Age. This has been developed over thousands of years for humans.
So for those, I'm
So are
gonna
we,
pause. We will, and I just wanted to mention, because you mentioned the green Tara, and I just wanted to
yeah,
let everybody know that Lama Tashi did give us the green Tara empowerment and the practice in a previous webinar, and we are in the process of editing that video. It should be edited this week, and it will be posted on Lama Tashi's website on the videos page. His website is kawaidharma.org, kawaidharma.org, and you will be able to view the Green Tara empowerment and practice, as well as all of our other previous webinars. All right, back to you.
so how are we doing? We coming to the end of the time?
We are at, yep, we are at the end now. So if we could do the dedication, that would be wonderful.
I'll do it first in Tibetan, and we'll.
Oh.
America Nudu Dog, Chagya Chempo Dugirne, Go Chinking Malupa, Dei Sala Gopar Sho, Sanjay Kusum Nimpai Jimla Don, Shoni Megur Dimpai Jimla Don, Yendu Miche Dumpai Jimla Ki, Jitar Goma Momam Drupar Sho. By the virtue of this practice and this teaching tonight, may all sentient beings be your Buddha nature, having the three vehicles of a Buddha, and by the blessing of this Dharma being unchanging, and by the blessing of the wishes of the aspirations of the Sangha being so powerful and so impartial, may this and all dedication prayer be activated. And for our teachers, may they all have filled. And for the sentient beings of this planet, may all beings be happy, may all beings be free of suffering, may all beings established in the state of pure bliss, and may all become emotionally stable and have fun, just like us. Mahalo, Tuchiche.
Uchiche.
Mahalo, Lama Tashi.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So thank you, Lama Tashi, for your instruction. Thank you for everybody for attending. As I said, these webinars will be happening once a month, so please sign up for the newsletter associated. Again, you'll find it on Lama Tashi's website, kawaidharma.org, under online classes, and you'll be notified of the next event. And many blessings. If you have any questions, send them to either info@tantricartsoflove or kawaidharma.org. All you, Lama Tashi.
Om Vajra
Yay!
Oh!